So today, I just want to share something which is very personal to my own life. I trust that it will be a blessing to you too. And the title of it is From Bethel to Peniel. From Bethel to Peniel. Anybody can say it's about whom I'm talking about in the Bible? And let this be very interactive, okay?
Jacob.
Oh, wonderful. It's true. From Bethel to Peniel, we see the life of Jacob, which gives us an example for our own lives. So we know about Jacob, found in Genesis, that he was one of the twins. First was Esau, and Jacob came after him, holding one of the Esau's heel. Okay, and so uh, his name Jacob means supplanter. Okay, the one who tries to supersede. Okay, so that's what he. So he was the younger one, but he finally ended up getting the birthright. So that was due to the foolishness of his elder brother Esau, but he was that way. See, he was born of Isaac, and his grandfather was Abraham. Very godly heritage, and they heard all about the wonderful things about God. So, but personal experience he did not have. He has heard everything of the living God. That the personal experience he did not have. So he did this supplanting. He wanted the birthright, and you know the story of how he got the birthright. And then later on, he received the blessing also, which goes to the elder one, which his father wanted to give the elder one. But his mother, really led by the Lord, but they did it in a very different way. Mother made that dish which was very, which his father liked. Rebecca knew what dish Isaac liked, and Jacob pretended to be Esau and got that blessing. Okay, and he got a wonderful blessing because the blessing which the father gives is a wonderful blessing. You know, one of the blessings which is written is in Genesis chapter 27, verse 28 is such a wonderful thing. Genesis chapter 27, verse 28, as Isaac was blessing him, it says, "Now may God give you the dew of heaven and of the fatness of the earth." Okay? May God give you the dew of heaven. That means the blessing from heaven will, will rest on you. And when Esau came and said, "Give me a blessing," his father said, just the opposite, and away from the dew of heaven and away from above. So Esau did not receive the blessing from above. So Jacob received all that. And then Isaac and Rebekah sent him away to find a wife because Esau married the people of Canaan, the daughters of Heth. And Rebekah and Isaac was very sad about it because they were ungodly people. The Canaanites, they were not people of God. So they were wondering if Jacob also will marry one of these people from the Canaan where they stayed. So he said, "Go to our relative's place." And so Jacob went there, and as he was going on his journey, he stopped at a place, and this is found in Genesis chapter 28. Okay? You may have read it, but I'm just telling you. So he stopped at a place, and I think he wanted to rest for the night. There was no pillow, so he put a stone, and he was lying down on a stone. And as he lay down there, he had a dream that there was a ladder, and he could see angels ascending and descending. Okay, that place, and then so this was a very different sort of dream. He saw angels ascending and descending. And then the Lord also stood there and said, I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham, and the God of Isaac. And this land which you lie, I will give it to you. Okay. And then he says that you will go there and I will bring you back to this place. So God also appeared to him there. And then, you know what he said in verse 16? Jacob said, then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, surely the Lord is in this place. I did not know it. And he was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? Okay. This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven. So he named that place Bethel, meaning the house of God. So this was his first experience of the living God. His father and his grandfather knew God, but he did not know God. So this was the time when Jacob came to know the living God. He met him. And that was the entrance open it was the gate to heaven. So just like how we come to the Lord, we do not know the Lord. We did not know the Lord before. We were supplanters, we were deceivers, we were all sorts of people, and then we came to know the Lord. That's our Bethel experience. Okay? So this was Jacob's Bethel experience, that he came to know the living God. So we have all had, I trust that we have all had the Bethel experience, okay, of knowing God. And they have got a living faith in God. And God is giving promises to us as we sang this song, as we heard the song. And okay. So then what happened to Jacob? He went to his relative's place, and then he met his uncle, and finally, to make the story short, he got married to the two daughters. He wanted to marry Rachel, whom he loved, but Laban, his uncle, deceived him. He said, I will work for 7 years and then you will get Rachel. He worked 7 years, and it says that 7 years were just like few days because of his love for for Rachel. Okay, so that shows, when you love something, that it doesn't become a burden. So the 7 years were not at all a burden for Jacob, but Laban gave Leah, and then he had to work for another 7 years. He did that, and God prospered Laban also there, and all that, and then finally he had to leave to go back to a place where he was in the land of Canaan. He had to go back. So by that time, he had become a big company of people. He had 2 wives and 2 maids who are also his wives, and then number of children. So it became a big company, and then with all the flock. So they had to go. But as he was going to come back, he knew that he had to meet his brother Esau. And Esau was holding a grudge and wanted to kill him. So Jacob knew about it. So Jacob was very, very much afraid. So we see that he was waiting to come, but he divided his company into 2, so that at least one will be not at risk. And Jacob, as he was coming, he was afraid. Then he remembered the promise of God, that God said anyway that he will bring him back to Canaan. So that promise, a man like Jacob remembered God's promise, and so it's so easy it's good for us to always remember the promises of God when we are in trouble. He says, okay, but God said this, so I will trust him. So Jacob trusted him, and then during that time he was left alone. Genesis chapter 32, verse 24. So here was Jacob, who knew the living God, lived a godly life now, and he was no more of the supplanter and deceiver. And now and verse 24, he says, and Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. He was alone, and a man, it says an angel of the Lord, was wrestling with him. And Jacob did not leave this this he was wrestling back, and he was not leaving this angel. The angel was trying to leave to free himself, but Jacob got hold of him. Okay, and the angel said, "This is going to be daybreak. Please let me alone. Okay, but I will not let you go unless you bless me," he says. He knew that this was no ordinary person, but he was a divine. It was a divine meeting, and he said, "I will not let you unless you bless me." And it was so much that a man was uh, striving with a divine being, and he was prevailing. And so the angel dislocated his thigh. So from that time onwards, Jacob became a limping person. And then in verse 29, Jacob said to him, "Please tell me your name." But he said, "Why is it that you ask my name?" And he blessed him there. So finally he received the blessing. And then verse 30, Jacob named that place Peniel, for he said, "I have seen God face to face, yet my life has been preserved." The name Peniel means the face of God. Okay? So Jacob, from Bethel, he has come to another experience in his life called Peniel. Brothers and sisters, this is what I wanted to say, that we have all come to Bethel, okay? Meeting God, knowing God, having an introduction of God. But there is a place called Peniel where we say, "Lord, I want your blessing." And it's literally like we have a wrestle in our mind and in our being, and through that experience we gain a, a different phase in our life. You know, we know God more than what we knew at Bethel. So from this, I wanted to share something from my own life. I came to know the Lord the year 1975, and that itself was a very transforming experience in my life. Okay, just like night and day. The next day it was totally different. Okay, I had a very good experience, but I was that up and down Christian. One day very high, one day down, and all that. And I was at the forefront by God's grace most of the time. Wherever there was, I was very active and all that. So it was good. I'd gone to Saudi. There also we had some fellowship and all that. Came back, and then had responsibility to some extent, even at that age, in my early 20s. Okay, was in the forefront, but the up and down struggles were there, and I came to a period in my life. I used to share in the meetings, okay, and I remember during that time, Brother Zach came. This must have been in somewhere in 1981 or something. Brother Zach, 81 or 80. Brother Zach came, and the one who introduced Brother Zach to that assembly was myself. I'm just saying, I used to do all that, but while I was introducing Brother Zach, saying that he's the author of so many books and all that, internally, something else was there. Internally, I had something else was, my attention was, focused on not only on Jesus, but something else. So this is what I wanted to tell. So, the Lord would tell me, because I was attracted to something else at that time. And God would say, "See, we cannot be attracted to two things in the Christian life. It can be only Jesus. Jesus, when we think of God and another thing or person or anything, it doesn't work out. So I had at that time, though I loved Jesus very much, okay, Jesus was all in all to me, but then suddenly something was also there, and I had this struggle. Oh, I love Jesus very much. And then when I think about the other thing, oh, I love this also. And now I felt that I have to leave this one in order to follow God, but then I couldn't. It was too attractive. Okay, this thing which was there. I was just, I think, maybe 23 or 24 years at that time. It was too attractive, and sad to say, I came to one stage in my life in order to give up God and take this, keep this, because it was so attractive. Ashamed to say this, okay? But it was the truth. But when I would think, oh, about Jesus, I said, oh, how can I leave Jesus? Again, the struggle. It is like a wrestling, you know, wrestling going on in my mind and mind. And I would, in the meetings, I would share, but internally everything was crumbling. Okay? And it went on like that. And then one day, I just we used to receive a lot of mails, and one of the mails was a magazine called Herald of His Coming. During those days, it was just like our newspaper, daily newspaper. It looked like that only, but it had all Christian articles. It just looks like a newspaper, but it had all articles. And that first page article was, I'll just show you what the name was. Can you see this? Can you read this? Anybody can read this? What it means? Nobody say. Huh? Somebody say what is that word?
Consecration.
Okay, so you can see.
Consecration.
So, right. So this article was there in that newspaper. This article was there in the newspaper, and I read it. Just read it. Okay, just started reading it, and as I started reading it, that it was speaking to me because it was something like my own situation. It is written by one very good author by the name F.B. Meyer. He was one of in the early 19th century, a godly person. I think he was a pastor or a conference speaker, very godly man. And F.B. Meyer was writing about his own life. He was saying that during that time, his life was up and down, but he saw two people by the name Stanley Smith, two young people, Stanley Smith and Charlie Studd. If anybody has heard of C.T. Studd, former Test cricketer who became a missionary. So he's talking about these two people. These two young men at that time, their lives were radiant, you know. And he says, they are so radiant and I am up and down. So he asked them what it is, what. So they said, when we give our life to God, we have to give it totally to Him. It cannot be, God and something else. It should be totally to Him. And if you find it difficult, you can say a prayer saying that, Lord, I'm willing to give my life wholly to you. Or you can say, Lord, I'm willing to be made willing. Okay? So something like that. So F.B. Meyer was writing this article, that same thing he was doing, and he says he had at that time something questionable in his life, and when anybody talks, when anybody speaks about that questionable thing in our life, we are not comfortable. Suppose there is some questionable thing in my life, okay, which is not the will of God, and if one of you asks me, then I will not be comfortable. So don't talk about that. So from experience that anything questionable, we don't want anybody to ask about that. So he says, I had something questionable, and that questionable may not be like some adultery or something like that. Maybe something, because he's a godly man. Maybe something which is not in the will of God. Okay, so we are not talking about some. It can be some secret sin, but it may not be look sinful. It may be something, something legitimate, but it can be something which we love more than God. that becomes an idol. Anything, anything we love more than God, then that thing we will sort of worship is an idol. Okay? So idols are not, for us, idols are not some things made of wood and clay and all that. Idols are something which we treasure as equal to God. That means we are saying God and this one. So, in that time, I had an idol. I can say that I was God and something else, and I was finding it so difficult to give. So, Abimelech said that he made that same prayer which C.T. Studd and Sandy Smith said. Said, Lord, I'm willing. And he says, our life is like a cupboard, you can say. This one. Now, listen to this very carefully, because all of you can identify with it. Say, our life is like a cupboard having some 4 compartments. Okay, 4 compartments, for example. And each of them have a key. Okay, and 3 of those compartments key, and Jesus is there, and 3 of those compartment keys we are handing over to Jesus and say, Lord, please take it, open it, and this is all yours. But there's one key, one compartment, this key I'm afraid to give to Jesus, because he will say, throw those things out. It's not what I want. So that one key we are holding and we're not able to give to Jesus. For me, at that time it was that. This one thing. Everything else is okay for Jesus. But this one thing I found it difficult. And I was struggling, as I told you, for months and days. But when I read this article, I said, let me just try it. The prayer was like this: Lord, I'm willing to be made willing to give. I'm not willing to give this. I'm not willing to give up this thing, but I'm willing to be made willing. Okay, do you understand this? I'm not willing to give. I'm finding it so difficult, but Lord, I'm willing to be made willing to give up this. So I said, looks like my own life only, and I could identify with it. I said, so let me do that. God's grace was so much that I could at least think in that way. So I just said that prayer, Lord, I'm willing to be made willing. I had just said that prayer, dear young people, and the thing which was so difficult for me to give up for some time became like how easy it is to drink a glass of water. To drink a glass of water, there is any effort? No. I drank that. I mean, made a prayer, and I found that I had no more desire for that thing, for that, which was attracting me so much. I was free in my life. The same experience with F.B. Mayer experienced. And the 4th key was also handed over to Jesus. And now it was all 4 handed over to Jesus. Dear young people, I want to say, since that day till now, it is all given. And every day I make sure I renew it. I say, Lord, is everything given to you? Is there anything left? Is there anything left? You should just show me every day of my life. And this is my liberty. This is the strength that I get. From that day onwards, I want to tell you that if you take a graph of my life, earlier it was up and down. From that day onwards, it is slow and slow. It is a graph, a line which is going up, maybe very slow, may not be a sharp rise, but a very slow rise, and it is rising. That's been my life. So, this is an experience, this Peniel experience is something which should happen actually. The Bible does not talk of word consecration. Actually, the disciples, when they first became disciples, the early times, their commitment was so genuine that it was a consecration at that time itself. Okay? So, but in these days, our commitment to Christ, maybe not, if it is right from the day one, with a strong commitment to Christ, that's the way it should be actually. But I want to challenge each one of you that, as I said about those 4 compartments of the cupboard, it's God can use us, and I want to stress on this one thing. God can use us only if everything is yielded. If it is 4 compartments, or if it's 6 compartments, all 6. It cannot be 5 and 1 for us. Somewhere it is just like the Israelites wandering in the desert. We will wander all our life if one of them is not yielded. This is the truth. It's so difficult to say this, but I have to say that our life, and I will tell you, there are so many wonderful young people here. God can use you so mightily if everything is yielded. There is no other way. Okay? The Peniel experience which Jacob had is a very important life step in our life. Okay, and Jacob, who knew God at Bethel, experienced God in a very different way. And when he was taken to Egypt, and when he had to bless Joseph's 2 sons. Joseph had 2 sons in Egypt. One was Manasseh, the elder one, and Ephraim, the second one. Okay, so Joseph brought these 2 sons for Jacob to bless, and so he should put his right hand on the elder one, and the left hand on the younger one. Okay, so two sons. What did Jacob? He was, I think, he could not see well, so he could not see properly, but he was blind. So Joseph brought these 2 sons, just keeping them, so Manasseh would be near his right hand, and Ephraim would be near his left hand, so that he could pray. You know what Jacob did? Jacob just put his right hand, he crossed both hands. He put his right hand on Ephraim and left hand on Manasseh. And Joseph said, "No, that's not the way it is. This is the other way around." So what Jacob said, "I know, my son, I know." So he was one who knew God in a deeper way. So brothers and sisters, young brothers and sisters, we have got such a wonderful life ahead. To know God is the most exciting thing. To know the living God and to know Him intimately is the most greatest thing that we can ever have. Okay? I can tell you right now, I am 65 years old, and if we hunger and thirst for the living God, God has got a great plan for each one of our life. God has got a great plan for each one of our life, but then He has given us a free will. Okay, so this is the 2 experiences, Bethel and Peniel,